All right, good morning. Welcome back here to Trader Minute. Great to have you aboard. Market here this morning, set to open up about 5 points higher. Interesting that number simply because yesterday we talked about this kind of reaction bump up here in the market up here to about 28.90. And, as far as from a short standpoint, if you're going to short yesterday's market, you've got to use this as your stopping point. Just simply for the risk of going higher that exists out there, and this risk of, despite, maybe a day or two of weakness or flat or, whatever else is out there, this market looks like it wants to print that new high. And so you don't have to use this as a stopping point. It sets up a decent risk reward. Well, overnight you can see S&P futures here during the Asian session and then during the European session. They pushed all the way up into this level. And then we had the European Central Bank. And they issued their statement. We saw initial reaction higher, then lower. Only about a 7-point reaction range. In fact, Draghi is speaking right now, but bottom line is they did nothing. They're not going to do nothing, and they know nothing. It's just one of those where there wasn't a lot expected from the ECB, and they're not getting a lot. And the ECB is basically saying they're not going to do anything this year, and that was the expected. So it's not really catching the market off guard or anything like that. Now, we do have the U.S. Fed minutes that will be released here today at noon, my time, 2 o'clock Eastern time. So those will be released later on here today. Talked about it yesterday. We have seen reactions to the Fed have been higher overall, but we'll see how today's plays out. With the minutes being a publication 3 weeks after. After what the after the Fed meeting actually took place and happened. A couple major upgrades, downgrades, analyst commentary out there. One of them, Apple, was downgraded here. Talked about Apple a little bit yesterday. It was one of the this is one of the first times we saw Apple start off higher and reverse lower. With the action we saw yesterday, very unusual for Apple recently. It broke 200 here, but this morning, HSBC came out and downgraded Apple. They had a hold rating on, but downgraded it to reduce. So basically put a sell rating on them, here. And interesting, some of their take. Talked about the revenue and some of the some of just the expense of the stock relative to the revenue, and they use this term relative optimism and this term complacency when it comes to the stock. And I think those terms are really interesting, and those terms are things you can throw out for a lot of things. Barron's basically put out an article saying that the market is partying like it's 1999, which was the dot-com bubble. I don't quite agree with Barron's on that one, but it has that type of Teflon feel, that type of who cares? Who cares what the news is? Who cares what the data is? Who cares what the values are? Who cares what's going to happen going forward? Because, well, we're just going to buy everything. And, that's the mode the market's in right now. And, is an Apple downgrade enough to shake that? Probably not. But that is one of the big kind of downgrades out there this morning. Some interesting upgrades. One of them, Under Armour. We've talked about Under Armour many times. I'm very bullish Under Armour overall. Was downgraded yesterday. Now this morning getting upgraded. And I think it just kind of goes to, we see this from time to time where a stock will be downgraded and upgraded. But generally it's right around earnings or right after earnings, right? But to see it happening now, with earnings, several weeks away, it's just a pretty clear example of how divided the market is right here, and how when you look at things fundamentally, you can make one of two stories. And it's one where the bearish story is very easy to make on a lot of things, and the bullish story is a lot tougher. But that's what the momentum is. That's what that's what the overall price action is. But fundamentally, it's a little tougher to make. You have to kind of basically say, hey, you know what? Economic growth is going to pick up going forward, and we're going to see things push on higher. We talked about the arguments, with when it comes to earnings and this kind of revenue issue. Revenue will drive, but this Under Armour upgrade here, this has been a story, a turnaround story now for a couple years, and they basically said that that they've now had their turnaround story, and now they're going to be focused on driving profit. So building that earnings per share, which is kind of that next step for Under Armour. And I think overall this is something where, the bullish story remains for Under Armour and for Nike, right? They're both, for me in that kind of bullish camp. I don't think either of them are very buyable right now. I think they each need some a little bit of shakeout time to happen, especially with Nike after the price reaction to the earnings, and there'll be an opportunity to buy them as we go forward. I expect, but from a price action standpoint, I don't see that right here. But we have that upgrade here for Under Armour. And then, last but not least, Tesla. Tesla here had the big gap down, on the sales miss, and pretty much has rallied, since. And this morning, and let me grab who it was. I'm sorry, I didn't write it down who it was. My apologies here. I don't have it right here on my fingertips. But anyway, the argument is that, hey, you know what? Tesla is a Salesforce, a CRM, which, let me kind of show you this chart here monthly. Right? Here's CRM, the $5 up to, 170, 160. All right. Calls Tesla one of these types of stocks, an Apple, which had a similar type of run here to it. It calls Tesla one of these types of stocks where, it's going to have big up and downs. And, Salesforce had some big sell-offs, associated with it. But overall, it has just been a monster train because it is a industry disruptor. It has come in, it is doing something different, it's disrupting the industry and, creating, a new meta going forward. And when you look, they argued when you look at Tesla, that's the mode they're in. They're creating a new meta going forward here. And but then said, hey, you know what? It's not time to buy it yet. Let it pull back a little bit more. Let some of the bears, have their day for a little bit, and then pick it up. Which is always one of those things when you hear an analyst out there talking very bullish, and then they say, well, you know what? But let it pull back first. They're nervous, right? They're nervous. They see the bullish story, but then they see the price action and some of the bear concerns, and they want to see some of that go away before getting too eager on the stock. And we see that quite a bit, but I agree 100% with them when it comes to Tesla. And we've talked about Tesla. This is for me a long-term, a very bullish play in the ultra long term, but with a lot of short-term turmoil. And if you get caught up in the deliveries month to month and quarter to quarter and just some of the drama that plays out, it is a high drama stock, that plays out. It can be maddening. But from an investor long-term standpoint, I think there's a lot of positives here. But do agree, it would be sure nice to see it have a sharp sell-off before, looking to pick it up and play it higher here in the long term. All right. So anyway, those are some of the things going on here, this morning, and we have, we don't have a lot of data, but we do have the Fed here on tap. We did have the inflation data come in line here this morning. Not a huge reaction to it, but this is kind of some of the stuff that the market is waking up to. I don't see it as really all that game changing, one way or the other. But it is one where after yesterday's action, you do have to, you have to be wary of some stop levels coming into play, and it's one where if yesterday's lows get taken out at some point today, post Fed, I think it's very, very telling as far as the ultra short term direction here, at least until Friday when we see the bank earnings. Now later today, going to be rolling out the spreadsheet that going to be using for the auto trade for the challenge, and going to show that here to you. Not going to make a trade with it here today, but just want to show you the spreadsheet. You'll have access to. It'll be shared, and you'll have access to pull it up anytime you want, and it'll kind of lay things out a little bit here. I'm not fully finished with it, so I do have a little bit of work to do on it here this morning, and we'll be working on that. But later this afternoon, about an hour before the market closes, I'll jump on and we'll go take a look at that, and then get off and rolling with that tomorrow morning. So looking forward to that, and making that happen, this final kind of testing phase here, well, what I hope is the final testing phase here for it. Thanks for hopping on. Have yourselves a fantastic day, and we'll talk to you later. Take care.